The news is rolling right along. If you want to know what's going on in the world of the tabletop gaming industry, you're in the right place for the week of October 22nd, 2018. The annual Spiel convention is taking place in Essen this week in Germany. You know, that's where Essen is. This is perhaps the most famous board game convention in the known world, at which a whole bunch of brand new games and games that we've known about are going to be for sale or for demo there for people who are able to make it out to Germany to get to see, including some highly anticipated upcoming releases. That you're going to see the brand new Camel Up 2nd Edition. You're going to see The River from Days of Wonder. You're going to see a bunch of games that we're, I think, personally interested in that we've been covering or that we already saw at Gen Con, such as a final retail version of 8-Bit Box from Yellow Games. And there's Europa Universalis, the new adaptation of that video game that we got to play at Gen Con ourselves. There's also some games that maybe we're going to get to do some reviews for in the near future that are hot off the presses, like Trap Words from Czech Games. There's a new expansion going to premiere for Bar Pig, which we also did a review for recently that adds more roles. That's a little drinking card game. So lots of cool stuff coming out at Spiel this year. There's a whole expansive list on Board Game Geek where you can read every single game that's going to premiere there. What I found really interesting looking over this list is how you see how in other regions of the world, certain games are published under different companies. And it's just very interesting to see, like, over there, Downforce, which is a Restoration Games reprint, is published by Yellow Games. And some, like, there's different different games are under different companies. It's just kind of interesting to see how that all folds out in Europe as opposed to over here.
Yeah, I mean, that's always interesting. Anytime when something goes over because of maybe that company, like for example, Restoration Games might not have a strong foothold in terms of printing in Europe.
Right, yeah.
So they can go to other companies. And you see this all the time with a lot of other things. It's always interesting to follow, then it can make some really weird things. I know for me, the example is seeing stuff brought over from Japan because different companies produce the shows, and then if Show and Jump makes a video game with all the characters, it might not come over here because like Funimation wants the piece of it, the pie, or another company. So that's always interesting to see when those kinds of issues then come up because of that.
Yeah, sometimes it just feels wrong to see like a different logo on the thing you're not used to.
I also feel bad then because we're like, we love this Restoration game, people try to find it, they can't. But
yeah, they probably
I will say another interesting thing for me was that I've felt like a lot more of my emails from Kickstarters have said, we're going to be at Essen. I felt like I've seen that a bit more than usual.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of people are being able to make the trip out there this year. Smaller companies maybe are making more of a push. We won't be there. Unfortunately, someday we'll make it. But if you're going to be there, definitely get back to us. Let us know what you saw, what you liked. And maybe in the weeks to come, we'll be reporting more on the news of things that actually happened there.
Z-Man has decided to add yet another iteration to its very popular game Carcassonne in the new game Carcassonne Safari. For those who don't know, because they may be new to the board game industry, or like me may have actually missed this gateway game, Carcassonne is a game where you sort of set down tiles and then place workers to sort of score points in certain areas and fields. The way that Safari works is you are actually sort of the tourist on Safari, and you're trying to get more different sets of animals, including completing watering holes with different animals, sort of getting a variety there, because, you know, the more different ones, the better. Just probably don't leave the Jeep when the lines are out. That's not a good idea.
That's what I did once. It was a mistake.
That's actually where all his hair went.
That's a true story.
So this is just like many other Carcassones. I think, as I mentioned earlier, it's a great gateway game. This is actually being pre-ordered now on both the site or from your local game store. And it does say late 2018 for release, so we'll see what that means. But this is probably perfect for in the holiday season because, I mean, animals and a gateway game, definitely a great place for maybe a younger audience to bring them in.
Yeah, I feel like there aren't too many standalone Carcassones. Most of the Carcassonne releases are expansions. There are a few, like I know there's like the South Seas one.
The South Seas, I know there's a winter one.
Yeah,
off the top of my head, yeah.
So you know, of course there's a million of them, but it doesn't feel like too egregious to have this extra one on there. And it is kind of a neat theme that, like, I think for someone, like, honestly for me, I look at Carcassonne, and even though I actually, I enjoy the game, but it's a little dry in terms of its theme. If
I think
put animals in there,
like
though,
I said,
that's
part
fun.
of it for both of us, as I said, it's not as much that we just happen to skip over it like as a gateway game. That's what for a lot of people that's what it is.
Sure, but I still feel like there are some other gateway games that are like I can get behind trains and Ticket to Ride versus just like abbeys in the field. To me, that's like super boring. But lions on safari, that's a little more exciting. Like I can sink my teeth into that,
I will say I'm curious on your thoughts on this because you sort of brought it up how like there's not too many of the alterations of the base. And I've been thinking about it a while. I'm like, while it is somewhat annoying when you see like, oh, this is the 8th different version of maybe Munchkin or Pandemic, it's sort of like, is that all right? Because it's a gateway game, that way you can get the gateway version that maybe would attract someone, like if they're more of a sci-fi person, to attract them. Like,
I mean, at the end of the day, if these games are getting more new people into the hobby and they're enjoying it and it's selling, make all the ones in the world that you want. It'll annoy the like hardcore gamers like us a little bit, but we're annoying, so it doesn't matter. Don't listen to us. Keep making them.
Except for this video. Listen to this video.
Due to changes in the way that the game and toy industry is developing, Hasbro, the toy and game giant, has announced that they're going to be making some layoffs in their company, and they are only going to be affecting a small percentage of their company. According to them, they said less than 10% of their overall workforce. And presumably, this has to do with the closing of Toys R Us that we've been talking about in the last few months. But it is kind of an interesting development. We don't know exactly which departments these layoffs are going to come from. So of course, this is a board game show, and this may not really be directly affecting the board game side of things. But I do have to wonder if that is, how much of a hit that is taking, how much of a result that this is having, how much of an effect that's having on this decision, if a lot of it is coming from the board game side, or if their board games are healthier and developing better versus their traditional toys and things like that, and action figures and what have you. But yeah, what do you think about this Hasbro layoffs?
Well, we do know this actually just came off the Mattel announcing their layoffs. I think they were hit a little bit more. But to me, this is more of like, by itself, it's like probably just the toy industry, as you said, Toys R Us, and the fact Mattel too. But I think it's the string of patterns that we see actually from Wizards of the Coast is where we should maybe be a little bit more worried. This comes a lot, for example, their cards. If you've noticed the quality, a lot of players have been pointing out in Magic the Gathering that their cards have been of weaker quality and warping a lot easier. In particular, the new set, they released these special promo cards of Planeswalkers. Big deal. But they were only available on their store, online store. So it used to be they did this set before called Masterpiece sets, and people thought they were going to be that pretty much super rare, like 1 in maybe 5 boxes. But like alternate art, beautiful, everyone loved them. And not like only versions get it, just like a prettier version, So it's not like you're losing the chance to play that card in your game.
Okay.
So this set, as someone who's used the online to try to get promos, in fact, I mean, there's the Magic promo there for conventions. Their site's not that great. And so that's pissed off a lot of people.
Just for people who don't know, Hasbro owns Wizards of the Coast.
Yes.
That's why it's as relevant.
And then Hasbro recently, or Wizards of the Coast, I assume through Hasbro, made the deal to directly deal with Amazon. So a lot of the local game stores now are going to have even harder time to sell Magic the Gathering when, would you drive down to your local game store or just like 3 clicks and then buy it? Like, I understand why making convenience with online, but
yeah, I would imagine that probably Wizards of the Coast does pretty well for itself, and Hasbro mostly leaves them alone, I would guess. But I don't know. Maybe they are struggling to keep some of that retail scene, and maybe that is part of it.
No, there's definitely, and would like to hear a bit more, because it's like you see a little bit pattern, you're like, it's not full enough to be like, oh my God, we're on the at the precipice of danger. So I definitely am curious to see where this 10% does actually finally lay off, or less than 10, but I'm going to use 10 because it's a nicer number.
Well, they are going to be releasing their quarterly report very soon. It's probably out by the time you're watching this, so maybe we'll get some more info from that.
Finally, let's take a look at what new games you can now purchase. First off, we got Between Two Castles of Mad King Ludwig. This is where you'll actually be working on 2 different castles. Each castle is between players, so that sounds pretty cool because it's sort of a back and forth and seeing who's on your left and right, and that can affect the castles. We've got Guardians from Plaid Games. The game which, until I didn't notice, many people said looked like Overwatch. This actually was at Gen Con. Unfortunately, we didn't get the chance to play it. And finally, we have Shadows of Brimstone Forbidden Fortress. This is actually in their Shadows of Brimstone world, but instead of a Western theme, we've got a bit more of a samurai theme, which is really cool. It was on Kickstarter a little while back, so we'll see how this goes and hear from probably other backers and see if they enjoy the game as much as they did the original Cowboy version.
A couple of digital releases this week as well. You've got Istanbul and Terraforming Mars. Terraforming Mars, one we actually tried out in its alpha form, and certainly if you've played that game, you know about the upkeep that you sometimes have to do on your turn. I think a digital version will probably be welcome. So yeah, you can check out all those releases. I think I know that Forbidden Fortress one has been anticipated by a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited. I was one of those backers, so.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see how it turns out. Hey, we'd love to hear from you all about which of those things that you're excited to purchase this week, or if you're one of the 10% that Hasbro's laying off, let us know what department you worked in. You can do that by leaving a comment right down below in our comments section. Or you can also follow us on all our social media stuff, Instagram, Facebook, etc. Like us, follow us on Twitter at Roll4Crit to keep up with all our fun news and stories there. Hey, I'm Jonathan.
I'm Will.
And this was Roll4Crit. Make sure you click the like and subscribe buttons so you get more board game content from Roll4Crit.
Do it. Do it now.